Hi guys, and today we have a Citroen C5 Aircross. Now I actually have driven one of these before. I borrowed one a while back, and that was for a specific thing that I was doing, going up to Wales and back to cover Citroen rally team at the Rally GB. But I'll come back to that in a minute. So I didn't get a chance to do a full review with that car, so I borrowed it again. This one is a diesel. This one is actually the 130 HDI 130 in Flare Plus spec, which is the top spec. It's an 8-speed automatic front-wheel drive. It actually has a 1.4 four-cylinder turbocharged engine with 129 brake horsepower. But get this, 129 brake horsepower, but 221 pounds-foot or 300 newton meters of torque, and that's only from 1750 RPM. So quite a lot of low-down torque on this thing, as you'd expect from a diesel. That gives it a 0 to 60 time of 11.8 seconds and a top speed of 117 miles per hour. Fuel consumption, they say, is 48 to 56 miles per gallon. I've been seeing around 44 on this car whilst I've been driving it around town. Now, the other car that I had was actually a petrol version, and that was a 1.6 four-cylinder turbo petrol with 178 brake horsepower, 250 newton meters of torque, 50 less than this one, and 184 pounds-foot, if you like, in that. 0 to 60 in 8.2 seconds for that one, and 134 miles per hour. So quite a bit more performance, despite more power, less torque, but about the same weight actually. Fuel consumption on that one was 35 to 39 combined cycle. Yeah, I think I saw about that, 36 or so on that one. Price of that car and this car, actually, coincidentally, is about £31,000. They start from 24 up to £33,000 for this kind of, I would say, mid-range family SUV. Bearing in mind, not four-wheel drive though, front-wheel drive. The main thing about these cars is space and comfort. And comfort, in fact, one of the reasons they did that trip to the Rally GB thing with Citroen was they wanted to demonstrate a link between the suspension on this car and the suspension that they use on the rally car. Now, what's so clever about the suspension on this car? They call it progressive hydraulic cushion suspension. And basically what it does is that it dissipates the energies at the extremities of the suspension so as to reduce the sort of shock and sound entering the cabin, and of course to give it a really good ride. So we'll see what that's like when we're out on the road driving it. But the first thing to do basically is to see, well, as a family SUV, just how practical is this thing? And of course, as usual, we'll start with a boot. I do like the shape of this thing. It's got a real standout presence about it, and lots of little motifs that carry through into other models in the range as well. Decent enough size, not too big, not too small, but you know, good looking thing. Oh, actually I could reach under there and use the thing. I could use the key fob, or I should be able to actually do that, and there you go, that actually opens up. Now it's got a gargantuan amount of space, as you can see. It goes from 580 litres up to 720 litres. How does it do that? A couple of tricks, including of course the rear seats, not just folding, because if you fold them down you actually get 1630 litres of space. It's like a cargo van, but there's something else that the seats do, which I'll show you later when I get in there. Meanwhile, I will show you this floor. Before I show you the floor, there's a little box there, a little storage box there, a light and a power supply there. But here's the trick: you can actually lift that up, and there's a spare wheel and a toolbox under there, a little cavity space around that. But actually, if I just do that and then drop it, I can actually drop the floor and give you a little bit more space. Now you do have a little bit of a lip then to get stuff over, but you know, it gives you a little bit more room if you need it. If you don't want the lip, you just bring the floor back to that level. So very practical, very handy, quite useful back here. What's it like in the rear seats? Let's go find that out. So here we go. Now this seat is set for me. This is my driving position. I'm 6'2", so as you can see, I feel all right. They've scooped out the interior or the back of this seat, so that gives me a little bit of that crucial extra room that without which it would have been a little bit tight. But otherwise, there's plenty of wiggle room for my feet down there. Now, 2 AC vents. That's good. They're looking after the rear passengers, and a USB. Well done, Citroen. Very, very good. Check out the styling back here. So that motif is carried through, that sort of oval rectangular motif is carried through in all of the design features inside the car, and in the front we'll see that when we get there. A little bit here in the pattern of the seats as well. Now, as you see, 3 individual seats, each with headrests, which you know are adjustable like that. Now the thing that I was talking about, the special trick that these seats have, is that they are, you can, I mean obviously that's too close for me, but if that was a normal size human and there was a normal size human here, you could be a little bit closer and then free up more space in the back. And the thing is that it's not just this seat and that seat as you would expect, but even the middle row, if I can put that down, even the middle row will actually slide forward. So actually all three of them are adjustable, which is a little bit unusual actually, and pretty good. So there you go. So yeah, really good back here. Like I said, a lot of design touches in the front, so I can't wait to show you that. Let's get in there. There we go, in the front of this thing, and check this out. I mean, just look at the design motifs in here. All of these rectangular features, everything is very different. Now this instrument panel is a feature in itself, honestly. Now let's hit the start button, which awkwardly is on this side, and I think that's because, you know, these cars are originally designed for left-hand drive, and I think, you know, if the steering was on that side, that'd be a more obvious place to put the starter button. But anyway, so a little bit of adjustment there. So, and you put your foot on the brake, start it up, and watch this. Oh, look at that. Digital 12.3 inch, I think. Configurable. How is it configurable? Well, let me show you. So over here on the steering you have remote. So there it is on my preferred setting that I've been using. It's quite good because it's showing me the range. It's still 360 miles. When I first got on full tank, it was like nearly 500 mile range. This is the diesel version, obviously. So if I turn that up, you got dials. Now it says dials, but it doesn't actually give you dials, but it gives you a big speedometer there. Then it gives you a rev counter there. It's very hard to tell on the screen that rev counter is changing, but it actually is. So you get that, then you get minimum. Like if you want to get rid of everything, you got a minimum setting, which is that, nice and uncluttered, very, very clean. And you got personal setting, which actually gives you a map in there as well if you're using the sat nav, which this car does have. And then you've got navigation, which is, you know, specific to that. So that actually pretty much gives you the map, the entire map. So it's all right in front of you. So that's quite handy. And then you got driving. And which is the one that I've been using. So that's quite good. Over here, more of the same design motifs are carried through into the door and all the rest of it. Down here, you've got buttons to open the back. You've got lane keep assist and all of that sort of stuff. Over here, you've got wireless charging, you've got eco and sports mode. The sport mode, we'll talk about it on the drive, but it just firms up the steering a little bit, changes the transmission characteristics, but it's very subtle. Eco mode, again, yeah, it's economical as it is, but you can, if you're really interested, use that. You've got power supply and a USB, so that's quite good. Over here, you've got buttons for the controls and all the rest of it. Now, the only thing is, like, you do that, and then you go into that screen. You've got Apple CarPlay and you've got Android Auto, so it's all connectable and it's really, really good, very easy to use. You've got your music system, 6-speaker sound system, actually sounds pretty decent. I've been using that a lot. There's your climate control. Top spec car, but no heated seats, no heated steering wheel. I'm a little bit surprised about that one, but anyway. Sat nav, then you've got your car controls, so you can set up all of the traction controls, so you have to turn it off from here if you needed to for some reason. Now this one doesn't have the all grip, the Citroen all grip thing that some cars have. Normally there'd be a dial here if you specify that, and that's the system that kind of uses the traction ESP to mimic a four-wheel drive. It doesn't have four-wheel drive. I wouldn't take it off-road, but if you found yourself in that situation, you would use that for that purpose. But honestly, I don't think I would pay the extra to have it anyway. I don't think it's necessary on this car. So you've got locks and fans and, you know, demisters, the volume control there as well. This is your transmission lever. It looks a bit weird, I know. It's actually quite easy to use, and it's actually easier to get used to than you would think. Over here you got the electric brake, don't have to do anything about that. 2 cup holders, and you have a massive, absolutely massive cubby box. I mean, I can actually remove that, and it's way down there, you can see. So very spacious and very, very handy. And over here you've got a glove box, which is not so massive actually, because it's only got half. I'm not sure what that is, maybe fuse boxes or something. I think it's a removable panel. So I think that compensates, this big cubby box here compensates for the lack of space there, but you do have deep storage pockets as well on the doors. Decent driving position. The steering wheel has got a flat top and a flat bottom. It's not because it's sporty, it's just because it's practical, because then it keeps your view clear there. It's perfectly aligned with the instrument panel, and it frees up some space down here as well. Overall, I've been very, very comfortable in these cars. These seats are amazingly comfortable. I have done Wales and back 7-8 hours in this car in each direction, and emerged feeling absolutely fine. I think there's some technology they've done. There's something special about the cushioning on these seats, but you know, they may not look it, but they are actually incredibly comfortable and very, very good. So I think the next thing to do is let's take it for a drive. So here we go, and a fair amount of torque on the go. I have to say, around town, I mean, it's not a lot of performance, as you can see on paper and as I've described earlier, but around town it hasn't been an issue. It pulls very well from low speed, which is really what you want around town. And on the motorway, which I have done, again, it wasn't an issue because it cruises very well. It cruises comfortably at the sort of speed that you need it to, so it's not really an issue. Having said that, the petrol car was definitely quicker, you know, and felt a little bit more powerful, if you like. Having said that, I mean, this is, I'm throwing around here, and you know, it responds really well. I mean, the steering is good, the turning is okay, it grips well, all the rest of it, but it is in no sense of the word sporty. And to be honest, I don't think it's trying to be either. I think it's very honest about that. The steering is quite light, and even if you put it into sports, I mean, it artificially weights it up a little bit, but oh, hang on, you have to press and hold sports actually. There you go. And then, you know, there's a very slight difference, an artificial weighting of the steering. But it's not really about that. What it's about is comfort. So going back again to that suspension, as you go, going over some ruts and bumps again, around town, it's incredible because it is very refined, it's very smooth, and it's never harsh. You know, like every now and then you see a bump, you go, and you brace yourself, you know, you clench your buttocks and you're like, okay, that's gonna be, and then you just glide over and you go, okay, it was just a little bit of a bump thump, but it didn't really feel much then, didn't even hear that much, you know. So in that sense, the ride actually for an SUV is really good. There is a little bit of roll and lean, as you would expect. I mean, it's a tall bodied car, so that's not altogether surprising. But having said that, you know, it's not any more than you would expect in a car of this size, and it's actually very well composed, as you saw there. You know, just pulling out that roundabout, we could have had a little bit of lurch, but actually it just settled back on its haunches and it was fine. The steering, I mean, you know, it's okay. It's like I said, this is not a sporty car, so they've kept it light. They've kept it, you know, basically as you would expect in a car like this. Having said that, the turning circle is pretty good and the maneuverability is pretty good, so it hasn't been an issue parking it or anything like that. You do get a reversing camera in this car as well, so that's quite helpful. And also it has an overhead view for the back, so that when you are just sort of in that last few inches, it changes to an overhead view just to show you exactly where you are relative to if there's an obstacle behind you, such as another car or bollard or whatever. But you know, having said that, this car, you know, and again, you know, that's a fair amount of, you know, from the initial start, there isn't more than enough acceleration to get going, and enough, like in these wet circumstances, to get some tire spin if you wish it. But again, it's just not about that. What this car is about is comfortable, easy cruising, good reasonability, reasonable all around. It's a largish car, if you like, for an SUV. It's not, I would say it's a mid-level SUV, but it doesn't feel it. I've never had any issue driving around town and feeling, oh, that's a bit big and stuff like that. Manages with restrictions and stuff like that as well. So overall, I think it's really, really good. I think it's definitely worth considering. Now, the only question that I would pose is between, because I've driven the petrol and I've driven the diesel, I would prefer the petrol. Let's be absolutely honest. For the money, I think the petrol, just the refinement level, the smoothness, they still got that diesel sound on this one. I'd go for the petrol car. That is, unless you tend to do a lot of high miles. If you do a lot of high mileage, then of course go for this one because the economy is amazing on it. But if you don't, if it's mostly around town, then I would go for the petrol one. Same money, bit better performance, definitely go for that one. So other than that, thumbs up. Very clever car. Was there any criticism? I really should come up with a criticism of this car, but I'm struggling to do so, honestly. You know, there isn't really. It's actually very, very good. So there you go. There's our review of the Citroen C5 Aircross. Let us know what you think of the car, the review, me, the weather, anything else you want to talk about in the comments above, below, elsewhere, wherever you like. And I hope you can join us again for the next review.